Well, then let's talk about some crime prevention. Okay, school's back in session. And as it says, this is just going to be an overview. Crime prevention, I could develop an 8-hour program on this and talk to you about it all day. It's something that in the 27 years of public safety experience that I have, it was something that I started with as an Explorer Scout with the Fresno Police Department out in California, was crime prevention. They sent all the explorers to go to these crime prevention classes so that we could learn what the new tricks of the trade were and everything, the trade were, and go over it. But the biggest thing is, and a little disclaimer, a lot of the logos and things you see on here are not mine. I didn't create them. They were taken from the internet, so. But the message is still the same. Crime prevention is a shared responsibility. It's a shared responsibility from the standpoint that the residents of a community have a responsibility to prevent crime. And they can do that in a number of ways, and we're going to talk about that. The police department has a responsibility to prevent crime when we see it, and to respond to your calls for service, and to respond to your concerns that you express to us when we talk on the street or on a call for service. It's a shared responsibility. The government has, the village can have, a police officer can respond to a house and have an issue that's going on, a street light is out, or there's some bushes that have overgrown on the side of the road that are now blocking a stop sign that's causing people to run the stop sign, that's creating a public risk. The police department would then get Public Works involved or the Department of Transportation involved, and we would try to work these problems out so that we can make the community safer and reduce the criminal activity that's going on. So to get started with it, let's of course. Let's try this again. Well, this is just going to be. So as this slowly rolls up, this is what we call the crime prevention triangle. There are 3 main components, and they're going to roll right by us, apparently. Did everybody get that? Because the way this thing's going, I don't want to go over it again. But it's basically what I talked about. You have a target, you have the victim, you have the police. Okay? Those are the 3 main. Everybody else can be part of that, but those are the 3 pieces to this puzzle. So let's set some goals. What is crime? At the end of this program, at the end of my presentation, I'm hoping that you guys, and we're going to start at the very bare minimum, because some people, you would be surprised, may not even know what crime is and how broad it can be and how it can affect you, even if you're not the victim. And after we've defined crime, we're going to talk about crime prevention. Now, in that crime prevention, you're here to learn how you can help prevent crime. So we're going to talk about that. And then we're going to talk about something called CEPTED. Okay? It's an interesting program. It's a theory more, but eventually we're going to want to take a bite out of crime. Okay? So what is crime? Let's take a look at it. Simple definition is listed here. It's an act or omission that constitutes an offense that may be prosecuted by the state and is punishable by law. Pretty vague, pretty general. That's what it is. It can be traffic law, it can be a bunch of different things. So let's break that down even further. There are 3 main types of crimes. There's crimes against persons, crimes against property, and then there are crimes against society and the public. Each one of those would become the victims. Again, we're talking in vague generalities. We're not going to get too specific, but we'll break those down even further just a little bit. Crimes against person. The victim is a person, specifically. A person can be robbed. A person can be assaulted. A person can be battered. Their identity can be stolen. They can be kidnapped, and then sex offenses. Again, just some broad terms of who are the victims of crimes against persons. And to the same effect, the crimes against property. Who is now the victim? The property. So those would be burglary, theft, arson, criminal damage, criminal trespass. Again, these are just some examples of that to give you an understanding of what these types of crimes are. For the police department, we try to prevent all of these. And the ones that people dislike the most are crimes against society and public, because these are sometimes referred to as the victimless crimes. Because speeding has no victim, right?
Wow, look at that.
Not until that happens. So it's not victimless. Society is the victim, the other motoring public. When people say, oh, speeding's a victimless crime, so are drugs. I'm not hurting anybody but myself, except for the people that are injured and killed in drug wars because it's not regulated by the government. Gambling, public drunkenness. So what is crime prevention? Now that we have a general idea about what crime is, what is crime prevention? So as you can see with this house here, it's pretty well lit. You can see all the windows, you can see all the doors. Kind of gives you an idea of what's going on. This one in the daytime. Now I want you to look at this house and kind of see the difference between the two. If we're looking at this, I apologize.
Can't see the front door.
See this side of the house?
Yeah.
Very well open. Still looks nice. You have some shrubs here, nice trees. Looks really nice, very well manicured lawn. But this side's a little bit obstructed. Now again, this is a picture, again, taken from the internet. It's simply to just give you a demonstration of what is towards crime prevention and preventing crime, because now we don't have the burglar can't hide in the bushes to break into your house. You've prevented that crime from happening because they can't or don't want to go into that. And on this side, they've got some concealment where they can operate with some anonymity and not worry about somebody seeing them and then notifying the police department so that the police department will then show up. So, to add the terms to it, basically it's just actions in an effort to reduce crime and deter criminals. This can be achieved both individually and as a collective, and a collective can be a neighborhood, a block, an entire community, an entire city. We don't have to think about this just how can I do it. You can and do your part, but then you can also think, well, what about my neighbor? You know, maybe my neighbor doesn't have the ability to trim their bushes as well as I do, so I'm going to get somebody to help them, and then together we're going to keep, because if your neighbor gets burglarized, it's much easier for them to go into the next house and think, well, I got a lot of good stuff over there. The burglar's going to think, I bet you there's good stuff there too. And can be applied to businesses, residential, and electronic profiles. This is the new century stuff. Because as we talked about in the crime section, what is crime? Can your identity be stolen? Has anybody gone through the identity theft programs that we've put on here? And what do we talk about where those identities are often stolen or often obtained by the bad guys? Via the internet, via social media, and different electronic type profiles. So we can do crime prevention there as well, and we're going to talk about that as well. So how can you prevent crime? First, be aware of what types of crime are common in your area. You know, if you live in the country, chances are you're not in a high crime area. Mainly because it's not really an area, because it's just you and a lot of country, right? But if you live in a municipal area where it's you and then you can walk 20 feet and there's another house, and you can walk 20 feet and there's another house, and you can walk 20 feet, there might be a criminal activity going on that you may be unaware of. A lot of communities nowadays, they don't want to talk about what's going on because people don't want to think that that there is any crime in their neighborhoods. Crime is everywhere. It is. But we've talked about what types of crimes are there. Are there individual crimes? Are there property crimes? Are there crimes against society? Is your biggest crime speeders in your neighborhood? Is your biggest crime criminal trespass, people cutting through backyards? You know, relatively harmless if it's just kids trying to get home before dinner, before mom and dad, you know, for curfew. But if you've got some, you know, expensive plants and shrubs and things that you take pride in and they damage or destroy those, they don't have a right to do that, and that's still a crime. So just be aware of what types of crime are in your area. And if you don't know, call the police. Send an officer over and just say, I want to talk to somebody about something. We're happy to come over and talk to you about what's going on. We can't do our job without the public and that interaction. You can have your home or business evaluated for security. Officer Simon, does New Lenox do home and business checks for purposes of crime prevention? Do you guys do those evaluations?
It's not set in stone, but yes, we do.
Yeah, it's not a formal program, but if somebody were to call and say, can you come evaluate, they would send somebody, right? As with the Manhattan Police Department, I'm fairly certain that the Sheriff's Department does, and I'm fairly certain that the Fire Department probably have similar programs as well for fire safety. So to get off just a little bit.
Do them together, actually.
Yeah. So those are often what are done for residential and business evaluations for safety. Establish a neighborhood watch program, know your neighbors. Should have put the second part of that first. First thing you have to do is know your neighbors. If you know your neighbors, you know what you've already done? You started a neighborhood watch. Because you're already watching out for everybody. Because once you know who your neighbors are, as long as you get along with them, you're probably going to watch out for them, right? So we're taking those simple steps that we don't even talk about just to say, that's not who's supposed to be over at Agnes's house. I don't know that person. Call Agnes. Agnes, do you know the guy standing on your front lawn? Agnes goes to look and, my goodness, no, I don't. Why is that man there? I'll call the police. You lock your front door. Agnes doesn't have to worry about multitasking. Agnes can go and secure her front door, secure any windows that are open. We've now prevented crime. Whatever crime that person may or may not have been trying to commit has now been prevented because we've taken proper steps, right? This one I know that I go over on a fairly regular basis in every meeting I go to ever. Contact the police immediately whenever you see something suspicious. I have been doing this for a long time, and it frustrates me to no end when I show up to take a crime report, something that has already happened. Some person, place, or business has been victimized by a criminal, and I'm taking the information for that police report, and a neighbor, a business associate, somebody comes over and says, hey, what happened? And as they're being explained by the victim what happened, oh, well, that's funny. You know, I saw somebody last night. He was walking up and down the street. I was thinking about what he was doing there. Well, did you call the police? Well, no, I mean, I never saw him do anything, but if you know your neighborhood, the way I've always done it, and the trait that I've always told people is if you're standing at your kitchen window and you can see out into your street, whatever window it is, but if you happen to look out your window and you see someone and you take the look at them and you look back and you have to do this, if you do that second look should determine whether or not you're going to call the police or not. If you can't answer the questions of why they're there and what they're doing, and they're drawing suspicion from you, we should be getting a call. Yes, sir.
Another thing we hear a lot, I know you do too, is we didn't want to bother the police. Please bother us, please. Particularly, I've worked about 2/3 of my career on midnight shift. We like calls. If the dog is barking at 2 in the morning, there's a reason for it. Maybe they were just accidentally left out, but maybe they know something is wrong. That's early detection for us. That helps us help you. It is not a bother. Please call us.
Ever bother. Yes, ma'am.
Somebody called the police because they saw somebody walking at 1 o'clock in the morning, and now they're being badgered for calling him on, I don't know if it's the Lenox neighborhood or it was Patch or whatever. These people are mad. They said, I can be out walking at 1 o'clock. Well, if I saw somebody walking at 1 o'clock, I called the police. But the people were mad that they called the police.
Go ahead.
To address that specifically, our dispatch center will often say it'll say one of two things. Do you wish to speak to an officer, or do you wish to sign complaints, depending on what kind of call it is? Loosely translated, do you wish to see an officer? No, I don't. I just like it checked out, please. That means the officer will not come to your house. You will not be identified. If they ask, do you want to sign complaints, that's the equivalent of if someone, that helps us establish probable cause. In other words, if someone doesn't want to sign complaints, we have to observe a crime or observe a situation that we can articulate as suspicious. If we show up and we can't articulate that person or that situation as being suspicious or possibly involved in crime, we can't do anything. So that one's a little more of a balancing act. Mike may have a different or same take on it.
No, it's the same take.
Yeah.
And to expound on it, you're walking down the street. You're walking on a sidewalk. You're not walking on anybody's lawn or anything like that. Is it against the law for you to do that?
I think so.
And so as a police officer, I can't stop you for walking down the street. Now, if you're carrying a baseball bat and a television in your hand at 1 o'clock in the morning with a hood on and you're doing a lot of this, do you see all the things I just described? I'm now articulating, I'm now telling you why I think something is suspicious. I changed walking down the street to walking down the street with a baseball bat, a television, hood on, making furtive and concerned looks and glances as if to say, I'm wondering if anybody's watching me. But if I don't have those things, because bad guys don't all wear hoods, they don't all wear the masks across their face, they don't do those kinds of things, to me and to Officer Simon, you walking down the street might not be suspicious. But we may see you right before you commit a crime. Not to impugn your character, sir. We're just using you as an example. But should that person that we see walking down the street, Officer Simon and I are riding in the same car together, and we look over and we say, hey, what do you think he's doing? I don't know, it looks like he's just walking down the street. You see anything in his hands? No. Well, let's go see if there's anything over here. Can't stop somebody for walking down the street. Now I can say, sir, would you mind talking with me for a minute? If they're a criminal, chances are they're going to say, no, I don't want to talk to you. At which point we say, well, thank you for your time, have a good day. Because we can't detain them. And their refusal to talk to us is nothing. That's where you guys come in. You know what belongs in your neighborhood and what doesn't. And when I say what belongs, you know what fits. You know who people are. You know the behavior of those that pass through your neighborhoods. If you live at one in the middle of a block where there's a school and there's a mini mart down at the other end of your street, if school gets out at 3 o'clock, a large group of children walking towards down your street in the middle of the street may not be a big deal to you because you know, oh, they're just going up to get a soda after school on their way home. Taken another way, large group of children walking in the middle of a roadway that's often traveled by cars, because you know that cars come up and down that street, that may be a concern to you for the safety of those children. Now we would want to call because you would say, I'm concerned for the safety of the children. To answer your question earlier about people being harassed for having called the police, I wish that we as a society could have answers for those questions, but the only thing that I can come up with is that everybody has their right to an opinion, and if you do not wish to call because of that fear, that is completely understandable, and no one would think bad of you otherwise. But there are times when those calls need to be made so that we can help protect one another, and that's where we talk about it's a shared responsibility. If the person that was stopped by the police was upset because he was stopped, I would suggest that that person doesn't understand that the people that called regarding his activity may not have known him and were simply concerned about who that person was. And that by the police stopping and talking to him, you know, if he wasn't arrested, we may have prevented a crime. What if it wasn't him? What if it was somebody that was there looking to commit burglaries and theft and damage? Now what? You know? It's rough, and we get that, and that's why our dispatchers are trained. The New Lenox Police Department and the Manhattan Police Department share a dispatch center. If I turn this radio up so that you can hear the radio traffic going on, you're going to hear New Lenox units, you're going to hear my partner, because we're the only two on right now. You'll hear the Frankfurt Police Department, you'll hear some sheriff's police. We're all on the same radio frequency. I can hear what he's doing, he can hear what I'm doing. I don't know if you had your radio on. Did you hear me make the traffic stop right at 1 o'clock? That was me, that's why I was late. So, see, I was trying to prevent crime. So does that answer your question? Does that answer your question, ma'am?
But this was like at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Right. And I have had, as I've said, I have picked up juveniles that are out walking the streets at 3 o'clock in the morning in the middle of the summertime. And I've had parents show up. My thinking is, oh, I found your children out at 3 o'clock. They're safe. Please come get them. And the first question they have for me is, well, what right does that give you to stop my child? Were they just walking down the street?
Yeah.
It was 3 o'clock in the morning and your children are 14. That's a crime, actually.
Oh, yeah.
So I wish that I could say we could fix everybody's disposition towards government and safety and things like that. It's a work in progress. We'll keep trying.
But we'd rather take the heat.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Do you wish to speak to an officer? Don't speak. No. We come out, like you said, if we do see it, being on midnight for about 2/3 of my career, I am extremely used to who called. I'm here. I observe this. It's a matter of reflection, but the bottom line is these calls are made in good faith. Like by just the example we're using of it being 1 a.m., there's certain behaviors that are fine, as Mike explained, at 3 in the afternoon. Take that group of kids going from school to 7-Eleven or gas station or wherever. Okay, that's fine. Now you see 4 people walking in dark clothing at 4:30 in the morning. As an officer who works midnights for a lot, and I know Mike can agree with this one, is if you get a call of 4 people walking through yards at 4:30 in the morning, as opposed to a car that is driving slowly up and down, not the same street, but throughout a subdivision at 4:30 and weaving left and right. Now, every situation is treated as if it's the real thing and a different thing until we get there and either prove it or prove it otherwise. But the 4 people cutting through yards, utilities, for example, do not work at 4:30 in the morning unless they are fixing a problem. You normally see lots of light trucks. That most likely is something up. And I'm not saying not to call this next example, but working midnight's lot, 4:30 in the morning, a car that's going through a subdivision, weaving slowly from left and right, not striking anything, paper person, they deliver. That is a situation that might appear on space to be very suspicious. Do please call. If you don't know, call. We've been doing this for a couple of decades each, so we're now familiar with that, but brand new on the street, I'm going, that guy's gotta be, intoxicated or something. My field training officer's like, it's the paper guy. And pull up next to him, sure as I can, morning, big bag, riding shotgun with him. So, but if I didn't know that as a new officer, you as residents, unless you're awake at 4:30 in the morning all the time and recognize those cars, might not know. But will take the heat for the call. Stopping you because, I'm Officer Simon, New Lenox Police, I'm stopping you because I observed your driving. You're all over the roadway. Oh, sorry, I was just whipping this paper this way and that paper that way. No signs of impairment, bag of papers right next to them. It fits what they're saying.
We would much rather go out 1,000 times for a paper guy delivering papers or some routine person just taking a walk and finding out that that's what it is than to miss a call, have somebody not call, and find out that there were 3 cars broken into and 2 houses damaged and God forbid anything else. You've paid taxes the whole time you've lived in this state. And those taxes go towards the services that we provide. The only thing that Paul and I are asking for, call us. Let us provide that service for you. So, I think I've talked that one to death. Let's take a look at these examples for lighting for safety. These are 2 different kinds of houses. But the lighting situation is, and you'll notice that these houses are obviously sparse of shrubs. But in the first, where the number 1 is, on the lower left side, driveways, parking areas, streets, something that kind of illuminates where you're going to enter your property. You basically want to have a pathway from the public roadway where you're securing your car, because if you park in your driveway, you have to travel from your car to your front door. If you don't have that space in your garage, like I don't, because I have kids and they put all their stuff in there and I can't, that's another story. So I have to park in my driveway. So my driveway is well lit. I'm lucky enough that I picked a house that has a street light right outside the driveway, so that when I pull in, the street in front of my house is lit up. And it's good because I have a very large tree in front of my house that I've trimmed up high enough that if you're in a patrol car, you can see all the way to my front door. But again, those are things we're going to go into now. We're creating the light path all the way there. The same for number 5 on the lower right-hand side. There's not really a driveway there in that picture, but they're giving the example of the walkway. There is a light from the street to your house by many different means, so that at night, Paul, do burglars like lights? Do they like operating in illumination, spotlights?
Transfer style.
Really don't like it. Doesn't go well with their clothing. It's usually not very flattering on their features, what have you. So if you can create a lit environment, and some of those path lights, I know that a lot of this, and I'm not naming any stores or advocating for any, but there are many hardware stores around here that offer sales and relatively inexpensive solar lighting. So you're not adding a power bill, you don't have to lay cable for it. These are individually, you just plant them in the ground and they've got solar panels on top. They take the sun from the daytime, and when the nighttime hits, you don't even have to turn them on. They automatically illuminate and stay lit for most of the evening.
Or motion sensing.
Or motion sensors as well. You can get all different kinds. But again, we go back to the call the police department for a site evaluation, and we'll come out and take a look at your house and tell you what we think, tell you ways that you can, improve the security and the appearance of security from your home to make both you feel more secure and make our jobs easier while we're driving around there at night looking for those bad So another one of the things, and some people like and some people don't like this, are fences. Fences are ways that we just keep people out. It's also a way for me to articulate that somebody was criminally trespassing. Because if I can come up to the fence on the lower right-hand side and I see somebody inside that yard and you're standing there and I know it's your house and you tell me, I don't know who that guy is. Well, I automatically know without having to have any conversations that he's trespassing. Because he's on the side of the fence that he shouldn't be. Now we can get into the legalities about, well, you know, you're supposed to put up a no trespassing sign, the fence itself is not enough, and so on and so forth. But at least it gives me enough to know who I'm dealing with. It's not somebody that just got lost and wandered into the wrong yard. You know, depending on how your neighborhood is set up, there are alleys and other public ways that go behind people's houses, and they think that they're, you know, playing into the wooded area, and then they end up in somebody's backyard. Oh, I thought this was, you know, kind of a park area. I didn't know this was somebody's backyard, that kind of thing. So fences are ways to do it. And as you can tell by the one on the top left, they can be somewhat, and again, this is subject to people's own opinion and interpretation, they can be aesthetically pleasing. They don't have to be these wrought iron, look like you're in prison kind of fences, because that's what I hear a lot when I used to give those recommendations on securing your yard with fencing. Well, I don't want to feel like I'm in prison, and I get that, and I wouldn't either, and I've worked in a prison, so I hated that part of my career. But making it something that looks presentable, putting lights on the tops of those brick standards that are the posts between the lines and the fence, so that it can give you some kind of added illumination while still being somewhat decorative, not being just plain. There are young artists out here that if you want on the inside of your fence, I saw one group that came through and they made this mural throughout their entire wooded fence, and it was a very nice, it actually made the yard much more pleasant to look at. One of the other things we can look at are cameras. I just had a meeting this morning about putting up cameras in different places. Cameras are not, they're about prevention in so much as if they're placed where the bad guys can see them. But even if they're not, prevention has another aspect to it. If I, as the detective, can identify and locate and arrest and charge somebody for a crime that's already occurred, that in turn will prevent crime, because then there will be some kind of a news alert about it, and people that are thinking about committing crimes may say, Manhattan, they know what they're doing in Manhattan and in Lenox and Frankfurt. They catch people. So having this video footage for me to prosecute and be able to identify and develop that probable cause that we need to arrest and charge somebody, look at the footage I'm going to get. If somebody broke into that car, do you think I'm going to get a likeness of the person that did it? If they came up on the porch and took packages off your porch that UPS and the mail service now are tending to leave, you now have video footage of it. If they're enjoying your pool while you're on vacation, you come back and your tables and chairs on the bottom portions are all turned over and damaged, you're going to have that footage, aren't you? Again, it's just looking at different placement. You can put it in places that are concealed in a corner that make it look like it's part of an electric box. Or you can also put it out there in the open, right at the edge, with a light right next to it. I've even seen new ones now. Does anybody have a porch with an overhang? So if I'm standing at your front door and you're inside your front door and I'm standing outside, there's a light right above my head so that it illuminates who I am. Does anybody have that? With the, not halogen, what are those bigger bulbs? They have them where they fit into a regular light bulb socket, but it's actually a camera, and it has 3 LED lights on the outside of it. Wow. So while it's illuminated, you can't even see. If I look up at it, it looks like a light bulb. But what it actually is a camera. You can angle it and turn it. I mean, the technology today is just phenomenal, and it's getting better every day. And the more common it gets, the cheaper it gets. Cheaper in cost, I mean, not necessarily. But again, can't advocate. I'm not trying to sell any product. I'm just telling you there are things out there. If you do your research, you can find out what best works for you. We talked about cybercrime and electronic profiles. It can be straightforward. We've talked about it before with the dark web and cyber safety presentation I did a few months ago. But basically, keep your computer current with your firewalls. Make sure you're cleaning your hard drive on a fairly regular basis. Choose the strong passwords. Remember how we talked about those passwords and we showed you that demonstration of how easy it can be to get rid of passwords and have them be hacked. Protect all of your personal information. These are all of the common sense things that we can do, and that in and of itself is crime prevention. If they can't get your information, you've prevented that crime. And it is part of crime prevention. So, SEPTED. This is something that I really like because it really brings together the shared responsibility portion of it. So what is SEPTED? Crime prevention through environmental
Yeah.
design. Everybody plays a part in it. The people that buy the house, the people that live in the house,
Yeah.
the people that design the neighborhood that the house sits in can all play a part in preventing crime. And so let me show you some examples here. So this is a neighborhood photo. Okay? Does it look like it was designed to prevent crime or fit people into it?
People.
So if I'm a resident, and I'm going to do some movement here, if I'm a resident in this neighborhood, and let's just pick any old house. Let's say I live in this house right here. Does anybody see that house? Okay? So if I live in this house, how many houses do you think I can see from that point? Just try to count and throw out some numbers. How many, just if I'm sitting anywhere in my property, if I walk around my house, how many houses can I see clearly? That was a number I came up with. Okay? So, with just the title of Crime Prevention Through Environmental Design, does this look like a SEPTED design neighborhood? No. What about this one?
Better. Yeah, that looks like it.
Hard to get the furniture.
So let's pick this house. Now we live in this house. If I'm standing anywhere on my property, usually over here on the front side, but if I'm standing there, how many houses do you think I can see? You don't have to see the whole house, but if somebody's breaking in the back side of the house, if somebody's breaking in the front side of the house, if somebody was creeping around a window, how many houses do you think I'm gonna be able to see?
10.
Okay. What other part of this environmental design, and I'm sorry, I'm making you move a little bit. What else about this design do you think relates to crime prevention that's not the individual?
You get
They're
trapped in
gonna
there.
be stuck in the middle, they can't get out.
So if a suspicious vehicle was driving through there and they said they got lost, how many times do you think they're gonna be able to use that excuse?
Once.
Because if I'm a police officer and I'm sitting in that little street in between those two houses, it's not really a big street, but I'm watching somebody come up one way, come back the other way, go down that one street, come back around, go on the cul-de-sac. I'm gonna be able to say that I'm gonna stop you for a community caretaking act. Are you lost? Can I help you?
Yeah.
You didn't necessarily break any laws. I'm just concerned you may be lost. How can I help you? It's designed to be a trap. Criminals will not like that. Because criminals know what we have to and what we don't have to do to stop them, and they're gonna know we can't drive down that street because, and furthermore, if a car did come through, and let's say so you catch somebody coming out of somebody's house with a TV over in this house, and this is your house here, and you saw the whole thing happen, and this guy doesn't know, and he's excited, so he goes and drives around this way. You saw his car, right? You got the color, how many people were in the car, and go, oh, I can't get out, I gotta go back to go this way. How many times are you gonna have to go by your house? Even if he turns here to go back out this way, you're still gonna be able to see him, right? Crime prevention through environmental design. What do you think? Is it designed for that? Yeah. So those in glass houses, while the design may be optimal for crime prevention, I don't want us to go too far. And I see a lot of people starting to do the nod, so I'm obviously not being animated enough for you. So we don't have to have houses that look like this. That's not what we're saying. Because we're about to go into the residential part of it, because you need to have some privacy. One of the goals of SEPTED and crime prevention in general is to find a balance between prevention and comfort. We want you to be comfortable in your homes, you want to be comfortable in your home, and you want to make sure that you're safe in your home.
Oh, yeah, look at that.
Yeah, that's a lot better.
Two completely different properties, right? Did you even know? It's like, oh, look, there's a house back there.
Wow.
How many houses, when you work nights, look like the top photo? And right as we were about to get off, when the sun came up, did we have to show up and they'd say, hey, my house was burglarized, and they give us the address, and we have to go up and down the street 4 or 5 times because we can't even see the numbers.
Yeah.
Man, I didn't even know there was a house there. This is a little less dramatic, but still, criminals will go in between those bushes that you see right there on the left-hand side.
Right.
And they could spend 25 minutes back there jimmying with the screen, then jimmying with the window, breaking the window, because the bushes are going to provide both the visual obscurement and a sound barrier that if they break glass. If they know you're not home, and that's what they're doing, now they've done 2 things. And forgive me, I'm not saying that the first house, if anybody knows who lived in this house, I don't know. Again, another just random picture taken off for an example. But the one on the right just looks nicer. Looks like one of those flip this house things, isn't it? So I want you to try to think. Showing you a few examples. What do you think's behind there?
That's their porch, but you can't see it hardly at all.
So it's just going to be the porch and the front door?
The entrance to their house, yeah.
Oh.
There's a window there too. They could have put a ladder, or they could have put a ladder over there and climbed in through the window. And nobody, even if you lived down the street where you could see up the porch because of your vantage point, you wouldn't have been able to see because he'd have been inside the bush.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions? Simple things to just get our mind wrapped around that we all play the part. The police department does what it can to prevent crime while we're out there patrolling. And we just need your help to notify us, to make the small changes, so that you're protecting yourself and playing that active role in protecting your environment and your neighborhood and your neighbors and your community. And it just goes on and on. Yes, Officer Sam.
One thing to beg of all of you, take one piece of advice, tell everybody you know. You live in a safe town. If you're in one of these towns, we have a reputation, we're in a safe town, where the majority of the crimes we do investigate are property crimes. Crimes against property, as Mike explained. Because it's a safe town, people do have that feeling that I can leave things unlocked. If you read the police blotters, I say, and I'm pulling this number off the top of my head, so please don't quote me on the stats here. I would guess as between, I did 4.5 years in detectives and 9 years as an evidence technician. Burglaries to motor vehicles, perhaps 90% of them were unlocked.
Right.
I get you feel safe in your own home, and we're glad you do. But towns can get a reputation for people feeling so safe, they leave their things unlocked.
Yeah.
I beg you, simply locking your doors. I mean, there's no one thing, but that's such a big one that a lot of times the people who are going through cars are either desperate, lazy, afraid, or all 3. So if you've got good lighting, as Mike explained, you've got a reduction in foliage, things like that, less places to hide. Even before a camera, if your car door is locked and perhaps there's a lack of expensive looking items in it, we all leave stuff in our cars, and I get it. I'm not gonna tell you to empty it out every night. If you lock your car doors, we will cut our numbers in this entire area.
Right.
I promise you that.
There are crews operating right now.
Billfold stuff on the seat or
Yes.
purse.
Very true.
There are crews operating out of the south suburbs and Chicago. And their main method of what they're doing is they bring a stolen car that they've stolen from some other town, and they get 3 or 4 of their friends, and they come out to the suburbs, and they find a residential neighborhood. The driver will stay with the car,
Yeah.
the occupants will get out, and they will walk both sides of the streets. And all they're doing is checking car doors. They're not breaking car windows, they're not punching locks, they have no tools with them. They're simply looking for the resident who forgot to lock their car door. And then once they find that open car door, they ransack it. Phones, change, checkbooks, old receipts, anything.
Sometimes garage door openers.
Right.
And then the car is following along with them, so that if somebody calls, somebody comes out to confront them, or we show up, they jump in the car and they take off. And if they're not interrupted in the time frame in which they're doing that, then they usually dump that car in the neighborhood and steal another one.
Oh.
Because a lot of cars nowadays, you can leave your key in it and it's a push start thing. And people think, again, we live in a safe community and it won't happen to me. Statistics would say, yeah, you're probably right. But do you want to be the one that makes that number not true? I thank you for your time. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. What are your rules on door-to-door activity where like you see a car come in your neighborhood and then like a bunch of people disperse and start going and knocking on doors and it's like everyone texts each other, says weirdos at the door, don't answer the door and they're knocking and
I know that, and I can speak for New Lenox on this because we've had this question before. I know that the New Lenox and the Manhattan Police Departments, as does Frankfurt, and I believe even Will County to a certain aspect, you must get a solicitor's license from the municipality for which you're trying to go in and solicit door to door. Those permits for Manhattan must be displayed. It's an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper.
unless it's the newspaper or
Religion, yes,
Big religion and two exceptions here.
because those are the.
how about unincorporated? Do the rules apply there? I'm like unincorporated New Lenox Township, and I just feel like we get a lot of them because maybe they're allowed there. You know, that-
I don't. Marissa, do you remember if the county has to have those in the previous discussions we've had on this topic? I know it's been brought up before, and I can't remember what the lieutenant said. We'll get back to you on that. We'll have to look that one up because I don't want to say that they do. I'm sure that there probably is in a bureaucracy as large as Will County some form somewhere, unless Ms. Becker, do you know if county has to have one of those? Is there a solicitor's license that the county would issue? So we'll have to get back to you on that one. I will do some research and I will get back to all of you so that, and somebody please remind me the next meeting to have me ask.
A crime prevention reason that goes along with that, with solicitor's permits, background checks. If someone registers with us to get a solicitor's permit to go door to door, someone shows up at your door and, hi, we're selling this, we're doing that. First words out of your mouth, if you choose to answer the door and if you choose to give them your time, it is your choice.
That's right.
If you feel comfortable enough situation to answer the door, may I see your solicitor's permit? Oh, well, my boss has it. That's the line you're going to hear if they don't have a permit. I've heard that over and over and over and over again. Whether it's the town I live in or the town I work in, I don't have it, but it means they don't have it. Because
No,
anybody who goes door to door must have it. And
Right.
most people don't call, they just say no thank you, so they can go to the next one. If someone has a solicitor's permit from us, we can verify whether or not they're a sex offender. We can verify whether or not they have a criminal history of burglary. Maybe they are selling something, maybe it's a scam, maybe it's real. You don't know any of that if you're not asking to see that permit. So that's
And those
a very
checks are done
simple
by
way
fingerprint
of
verification.
Hmm?
Those checks are done by fingerprint verification. They have to pay a fee.
Okay.
I did 2 yesterday. I fingerprinted 2 people that were applying for solicitor's licenses. So that's why you want to make sure the first words, and I do it at home myself. Hey, that's great, you're selling stuff to her. Do you have a permit? Oh, my boss, bye. Now, I'm not saying being as rude as I am, because I'm just real short with those people, but in some way or another tell them that you're not interested or you don't do business with, solicitors that don't get the proper paperwork, however you choose to phrase it. And I know we've said this before, if we don't know who's answering our door, the safest thing to do would be to what?
Don't answer it.
And if they won't go away, who do you call?
Police.
Huh. Get through. I feel like I've accomplished something today. Thank you. Are there any other questions? Nothing at all?
Everybody got your blue ticket?
Yep.
And don't forget to get the snacks and drinks. Thank you for your time today.
The very